Let me get a confirmation. Okay, so looks like we are live. Welcome everybody. Welcome to another Product People live stream. If you're a bit confused about the title, just giving a heads up, we already left an update on the channels, but today we were supposed to have Lior, but he couldn't join because of some personal reasons. But instead, we are having Hamza today with very trendy and interesting topic for any product managers, which is an introduction to vibe coding. We all know vibe coding has been on everybody's mouth for the past months, rightfully so, because it's a really easy skill and tool that we can use to level up product management game. So that's what we are going to be talking about today, and we highly encourage you to keep watching. Um, just to give a bit of context on how we're going to do it, now I'm going to introduce ourselves, introduce Hamza, then Hamza will give his presentation, and at the end of it, we will have a live Q&A. That's the reason why you're seeing on your screens this QR code and this Slido code. We'll use it for the questions, the Q&A at the end of the presentation, and also to ask you some icebreaker questions. So I think we are good to go. As I mentioned, today we're having Hamza, and he's going to be talking about introduction to vibe coding for PMs with some real examples and some very practical advice. And I'm going to be today's host. My name is Andrea, and I've been working at Prop People for more than 3 years as a growth marketing manager. Before joining Prop People, I was working in business development, and I mostly do B2B and B2C digital marketing. I do content creation and strategies. And I got my master's degree in marketing at the University of Barcelona. And before that, I did a bachelor in science, in food science and technology. So if it's the first time you're joining and you know what we do, this is a really fast summary. We are a product management consultancy, and we do interim product management, products operations, and transformation acceleration. We like to say that we deliver great products fast, and that's how we do. Well, that's basically how we make money. But we also are big about sharing knowledge, especially to PM community, and that's why we have these free events and talks for our PM community, which right now is quite large. It's around 60K members. And okay, so we want to get to know you. So to start and to break the ice, we want to ask you if you could build one thing today without waiting for engineering, what it would be. So to reply to this question and let us know your answers, please scan the QR code that you're seeing on screen, or go to slido.com and introduce the code that we have here. And the possible answers are A, discovery prototype to validate a risky assumption, B, small automation or internal tool, C, demo to explain an idea to stakeholders, and D, quick experiment to kill a bad idea early. I honestly believe that all of them, maybe Hamza, you agree with me that all of them are very valuable at this point, but I'm really curious to know which one from our audience is the one who's sticking out the most.
Yeah, I've tried all four of them since vibe since vibe coding became a thing.
Okay. Remember that also this QR code and the code that you see on Slido will be the same for the questions and answers that we will have at the end of the presentation. So we have the first results. And apparently we have equal votes on option A, B, and C. So the audience cannot choose between them, which very, very relatable, honestly. And okay, so the time for you to present Hamza has come up, and the stage is yours.
Okay, thank you, Andrea. Let me share my presentation. Okay, it's visible. Let me know.
Yes, I can see it. Yeah.
Okay, let's start. So I initially presented this to everyone at Product People a couple of months ago, and now here I am sharing it with the world, with a little bit of updates and what we've done so far. So for the agenda, I will not take too long. I will first introduce you all to vibe coding, especially for people who've only like heard about it but haven't really explored what it is. I'll discuss some use cases for product managers, compare some popular vibe coders you've been seeing online, integrations to make your vibe coding experience even better, the suggested workflow that I've been following, some caveats and blockers, some examples, and I'll end it with a fun live demo, which will work correctly, hopefully. So let's start. What is vibe coding? So, in the simplest of terms, it's basically coding with a heavy reliance on AI, quotation marks on coding. You basically use AI powered platforms to create websites, apps, tools by sending prompts to a large language model such as Claude or ChatGPT. The LLM would generate the code, the logic, and the UI for you, while your main responsibility is to guide the process with your words and your brain cells. Um, the vibe coding platform sends prompt instructions and helps with automatic integrations. Send a message or a couple of message and instructions, and then the vibe coding platform will convert that into code and logic and display it for you. Different. It's slightly different from traditional no-code tools where you drag and drop components and build logic without AI assistance. Here, you're not directly like putting in elements. You're just telling AI to add the elements for you. So we have a couple of use cases for consultants such as product people or for product managers. What we do is we speed up prototyping and product discovery. We create prototypes as proof of concepts for early for sharing it with stakeholders or engineering or design. Um, we minimize reliance on engineering and design resources in this case. So, for example, if you're testing out a really small idea that you feel like your engineering or design team can take on at this moment, you can just go to a vibe coder and then try it out yourself. What we also do is we quickly test feature logic, user flows, UI changes, etc. So for example, if you want to change the placement or like the layout of an app or tool, you can simply try it out yourself without going through design first. One of the things we also use in many ways, and for me personally, is that I use it as visual aids to communicate my ideas. Sometimes writing it down isn't helpful, especially for people who rely on visual aids to understand. So vibe coding is a really quick and fun way to make sure that you're getting your ideas across clearly. Then we have internal work. So work for your team. It can be something like building custom tools to boost team productivity. So, for example, organizers, dashboards that fit the specific quirks or ways of working of your team. You can also leave a meaningful impact during your time at the company. You can automate repetitive internal tasks to save time, improve internal workflows, and increase efficiency. So, one of our team members, Furkan, created a tool that automatically blurs sensitive information when you're sharing it with different teams or stakeholders, and that's one of the ways that's like significantly boosted up our workflows. Um, the third one is just for your personal growth. So you can stay up to date with emerging tools and tech that boost your efficiency in your daily life, whether it's for personal or for your own work. You can build up those exciting ideas you've always hesitated to start. If you have like a notes app with a lot of business ideas hidden somewhere, you can finally take those ideas out and bring them to life. And the third thing is something that helped me a lot as a non-technical PM is that it helped me learn about coding by doing. So I learned about basic elements, different files, environments, basic stuff like that. So I'm able to understand my developers a lot better. In the market and on LinkedIn or YouTube or wherever you are, you'll see a ton of vibe coders appearing in videos or in posts. The most popular you've probably heard of is Lovable. Then also you've heard of Figma Make or Replit. I'll quickly go over them, and I've also added a list of other vibe coders I've tested out on the right. So the easiest and then the most mainstream one right now is Lovable. It's the most user and beginner friendly. Some of the cons are that free projects are public. I've heard they're converting it to private, but I'm not sure. But it's really good for quick, clickable prototypes that you want to share or you quickly want to iterate. Then we have Bolt New, which is similar to Lovable, but it also allows you to create iOS apps right from your browser. Um, it's a bit more error prone sometimes. It takes a lot of tokens, but it's super fast and it's super helpful. You generally learn by trial and error which tool is right for you. Sometimes it's Lovable, sometimes it's Bolt or New. Sometimes it's Figma Make, where you can integrate with existing design systems. It requires a subscription, but it's really helpful if you want to follow the company's design system when creating your prototypes for anyone to view. Then we have Replit. Replit's cool thing is that um, it has a mobile app, so you can download and wipe code right from your phone. Then we have Cursor and Windsurf, which are slightly more technical. You require some coding knowledge, but they're really good for large projects, full stack app generation. That's not only for web apps, um, and it's really great if you want to publish a really good app without having any coding experience. You still need some coding knowledge though. Then we have Windsurf. Oops, I think I mistakenly put it here, but then it's similar to Cursor in a lot of things, and it's one of the good options out there. On the right, we have other tools like V0, we have Bolt.diy and Dyad, which are open source. You use your own API key, so it's really helpful. Then we have Canva Code as well for people like me who generate presentations on Canva. And then we have other tools that I haven't tested like WebSim, Uware, Alten, and chatbots are now increasingly adding containers or features into their website where you can preview websites upfront. Then what you also want to do is if you're creating an MVP or a more or a better app with many more features compared to a simple front end, you would definitely require some integrations. Um, for me, the first one is AI chatbot. So you can use ChatGPT or Gemini to create PRDs, enhance prompts and ideas, or use as a sparring partner. For Supabase, you can add backend support. You can also add data storage, authentication. So it's, I think, the most mainstream and the easiest of backend platforms. We also have GitHub if you want to use for versioning. If your MVP is um, becoming much more official, you definitely need to keep track of everything that's going on, any changes that are being published. Then we have 21st.dev. It's great if you want to make your prototype much more prettier. It has a lot of beautiful UI components and it can really enhance your vibe coded project and make it stand out. Finally, if you want to publish your project to a domain, you need a hosting provider. And for that, I've used Netlify a lot. It creates a public URL and you can host your project for free for user validation, for stakeholder validation, for basically sharing with anyone. For me, I have this sort of long workflow. It's not that long, trust me. Once you get used to it, it's super easy. The first thing is that you get your product idea and your design inspiration. You can get your design inspiration from Behance, Dribbble, and you can get your product idea from anyone while discussing it with your engineers, your designers, or you just dreamt it up. When you take both of them and you create a PRD out of it, you can go to ChatGPT or Gemini, whichever you prefer right now, put it in, give it a couple of specifications that you want. For example, um, are there any uh, colors you want to implement? Any layout preferences? Do you want to focus on mobile or web first? Is there any specific architecture or tech stack that you're looking for? So if you don't provide these things, AI is going to assume them for you. So it's always best to provide more details. Once you have a good PRD, you need to break it down into smaller PRDs. AI isn't that good at implementing multiple features at once. So the best approach is to break down your entire PRD for the tool into smaller feature PRDs. The third or the fourth option here is to choose your tool. You can go with Bolt, you can go with Lovable, whichever your company recommends or your teammates use. Um, Next, move on to prompt and iterate. Iterate. Sorry. Add your PRD in there. Whatever comes up, if you see any bugs, fix them. If you see anything that's missing, send in follow-up prompts to make it ready. When you're confident in your prototype, you can deploy or publish it through many hosting providers. Um, if you want to make it official or implement it in your tool or release it for users, it's always best to conduct user testing first to come up with any edge cases, anything that you didn't account for but your users might experience. um, so any breaking, any blank screens, error states, etc. You will then have to review those results, uh, go back, generate PRDs, prompt and iterate, fix your tool, and then finally, you can either hand it over to engineers or you can publish it as your own tool that you own completely. Now, when you're working on vibe coders, there are a couple of blockers, especially if you come from a non-technical background. Um, The first one is that there are tool limits right now. So if you're on the free tier For example, you'll get like 5 free messages daily, or you don't have the ability to edit code yourself. Um, so you need to choose your tool accordingly before you commit to the tool to build your tool. Then we have public versus private projects. It's always good to make sure you read all the features of the plan that you're on in the specific vibe coder. So, especially if you're creating company specific content, don't put confidential information on some tools without reading up. Um, Make sure that the project that you're creating is also private. Sometimes tools create public projects, so anyone on the website can view them, or anyone with the link can view them. Um, One of the biggest issues, or like the caveats right now, is that you eventually end up with a tech wall. You might end up needing real developers for complex logic if the code is too much to handle. Um, Debugging can be difficult in many platforms, and it's especially difficult if you're trying it out for the first time. A lot of the times, error logs are not properly created, so you wouldn't really know where the error is. So you would need to go through the code or the logic or prior prompts to come up with the solution, or you might need to talk to a real developer. Um, Another real problem is that if you don't specify the tech stack, it may end up choosing one that's difficult or confusing for you or known to be buggy. Um, it's especially useful if you're working on a company project. You might already have a database, so you don't want to use Supabase in this case. Um, or you might end up using a UI library that you don't prefer. So the more details, the more thought out solution you come up with, the better your tool is going to be, and the less issues you're going to come across. Some tips: dealing with limited prompts tokens. um, Add multiple related changes in one prompt. So, for example, if you have one prompt left and you have a couple of design related changes, add them in a list. So, sorry, change the font to XYZ. Bullet number 2, change the colors to this hex code and this hex code, etc. But not too many, or else the results might not suit what you want. Then the next tip is making exact changes. Use clear and concise language to explain what changes you need and why you need them for the better. A lot of the times when you're giving something to AI, you'll just be like, hey, make this specific change, but you don't specify why you need it. Sometimes giving that extra context can help the AI. So, for example, if you're saying um, increase the font size, give a more concise example. Be like, give increase the font size to something that's much more readable and according to WCAG guidelines or accessibility guidelines. So the AI can directly take those documentation and then apply that change according to your requirements as well. And that is it for the theoretical side. I'll quickly go over the workflow that I've come up with, and then I'll go through this process with you. You can also leave any comments that you have or any questions, and then we can go through them one by one at the end. So let's start. When it comes to product idea, let's imagine I want to create a task manager or like a Kanban board, but I want the design to be much more bold or neo-brutalist. So something that's much more obvious, something that's much more clearly understandable. Um, it's something kind of like Notion, but it's only the Kanban board that I can have on my second screen right there. I'll go to Gemini. I'll write down what I want. So over here, I'll just write down create a PRD for me that is for for a Kanban board which follows accessibility best practices. I want the design to be bold, similar to, let's say, I really like Gumroad's design. It's really vivid and nice. Then for the tech stack, I don't really have a requirement because it's a really simple tool. However, if you want like back-end capabilities, then provide the information that you want it integrated with Supabase. Over here, I just want a basic tool that's saved on my browser and local storage. Um, do I have any other requirements? Allow me to change and I also specify that I want it for a vibe coder platform. I'm going to choose fast, but for best results, you can always go with thinking or reasoning models so that AI has more time to flesh out your PRD and your idea. For now, it's a super simple concept, but if you want a complex tool, like for example, I was working at a payroll tool, I needed to add the entire payroll logic in simple English or English understandable by me, so that it could convert that into its magic. It's like code-based logic. So over here we get a fun board. It's taken that high energy branding from Gumroad and then the accessibility point that I pointed out and created a Kanban platform. Design and aesthetic, functional requirements, accessibility specifications, technical stack. It's following basic ones and user stories to give the vibe coder much more context so it can also come up with better features or edge cases that you might not have thought about. What I'm going to do is I'm simply going to copy this, and if the PRD was pretty long, if you, as in the case if you use a reasoning model, you can then be like, hey, I only want to focus on the main screen for now. Do not add a user on my profile panel, stuff like that. Now I'm going to go over to a vibe coder, in this case, Bolt. I'm going to choose my model. I'm going to use Sonnet, which is fast compared to Opus, which is for reasoning in case you want a much more logic and brain cells driven approach. So I'm going to simply paste the PRD here. I'm going to remove this redundant code. I think this note is helpful for the vibe coder. And at the top, I'm going to be like, please, according to the following PRD. In some tools, it's better to plan first so you can review what Bolt is going to implement. For time's sake, I'm not going to do this. What plan is going to do, it's going to give you its Bolt's plan of implementation. First, it's going to implement the Kanban design, then the modification feature, then the profile feature, etc. I'm going to go on build now, and it's going up. It's thinking right now. This is probably going to take some time. Let's see. In cases like this, when I'm working and I'm also wipe coding, I just enter a prompt and then I go back to work. And then I come back after 5 minutes and then I add another prompt to fix those bugs and then I go back to work. As you can see, now Bolt has come up with a plan and it's automatically implementing that. If I had selected plan first, Bolt would have given me the plan and then asked me for the approval before proceeding. It's following some of the requirements that I listed down. For example, this package, the code port component with drag and drop functionality, column management, card management. This is something that it came up with on its own with the context I provided. The new Brutalist design from Gumroad, and then making sure it's accessible. Cue some elevator music. Um, if anyone has any wipe coding specific questions, you can also drop them down and then we can answer them on the go. Okay, we have one question from Sabine, if I'm pronouncing the name correctly. I plan to build a functional prototype, almost a beta, what that I can test at scale. What tool can you recommend that offers easy access for testers, and where can I get the user analytics? I used poe.com and so far, but it's buggy and users need to sign up, and I don't get any insights. Let me check POE or PO. And for me, I think what I've done is when I needed to validate it with the client I was working at, um, I tried. I first tried Lovable. So Lovable was really good at creating a pretty front end tool, and it was really easy to get the initial validation for us to put some focus work or focus time towards this tool. Um, However, afterwards, when we realized that we wanted to create a tool that we can also test out with customers, we realized that we needed a more comprehensive tool. Um, if you want this tool to scale up, I would recommend going with Cursor or Windsurf. Cursor has really good capabilities and it's able to create tools with a lot fewer bugs than I've experienced with, let's say, web-based tools such as Bolt or Lovable. Um, However, one caveat with that is that it is slightly technical. However, it's nothing that we PMs can do. You learn along the way, and I did the same way, and we were able to create a concept that we could share with large clients, test it out. That prototype we then hosted on Netlify, and I and we didn't add any authentication, which is optional if you want to do it and if you want. Then further on for analytics, Bolt and Lovable offer basic insights, but you will need to integrate another analytics tool. I can perhaps provide much more information later on after this stream as well. Then we have another comment. As a non-technical PM, have you ever been able to create products that were usable without the need for engineering help? Yes, similar to the example I've shared above, I created a very basic MVP. Um, I did have to flesh out the entire logic. However, it ended up being a tool that was really good at showing it to potential customers and getting feedback. Um, Other than that, I've also created a bill splitting app. This was just for me and my friends who like to go out, and then we have so many different costs in different apps and different payment methods that we need to collect all of them. Um, I also created a website where I have games, so like movie charades or Find a Spy or Taboo, which is perhaps not PM related, but just to give an example, I shared those with a lot of friends, and it's gotten really good feedback. I haven't run into any bugs as of yet. Then we have one more question, which I will take before going back the board, to the whiteboard. Do you keep one central knowledge base for the AI? For example, Claude.md in the project for multiple, for example, for design systems. Uh, this is something that OpenAI actually recommends. For example, if you're doing it with Codex, that you have an empty file where you're writing down all the instructions. Um, it's also a really good um, thing that I haven't mentioned is that if you're creating a comprehensive tool, it's always best to ask the AI as well to keep a central knowledge base or standardize all the things. So a lot of the times it will pick up one component, but when you add another feature, it will create an entirely new concept component that looks the same as the previous one. Yes, it's always great to have one central knowledge base. Um, It's also helpful to have multiple smaller knowledge bases so your tool doesn't use too many context tokens. So one knowledge base for design, one for a logic if you're implementing a logic based tool, and then one for, let's say, the tech stack. So you need to specify that, hey, do not ever use this library or this tech stack. Okay, let's go back. And we have a whiteboard. It came up with the name. Let me see if I can zoom out. So here it is. So we have a backlog in progress done. We can add a column. I can add a card here. My personal task. And sometimes the AI goes ahead and adds more features than you requested. For example, I only added, in my mind, I was only imagining a basic task, but it also added a description and tags. Cool tag. So here you can also see a bug where this text is actually going outside this container and then behind this one. So these are things you'll need to fix. My case, what I do is I just write them down over here or in my notes app, and then I take them one by one and then I add them back in this page. Over here, I'll just note it down. Over here, the button. if you can't see the text I'm adding, the button to add a tag is behind the in progress column. Uh, Please make sure all elements are clearly visible and within their specified containers. So over here, it added my tag. It skipped the other tag, which I didn't add as fast. Then I have the option to drag this and put it in the in progress. And I can also drag columns as well. So now when you have this basic tool set up, you can then think about what is missing. Over here, for me, as someone who's just going to keep it to the side, it looks good. But one of the things I don't like is the fact that I have to scroll over here all the way. I want all my content on the screen size that I have specified. So this is another thing that I've just noticed. So I'll write it down. Can you make the screen responsive? If you don't know these specific terms, it's completely all right. Just try to describe it in the best way possible. In this case, if I didn't know the word responsive, I would be like, hey, the containers are extending outside the screen. I want to see all of them in one place. Please put them there. And I think that is it for the basic prompting. Just prompt and iterate. I don't know why I keep messing that word up. I can also add any design specifications. In this case, I want to add, let's say, another kind of design inspiration I found online or from another tool. If I have a prompt but I don't know how to specify it, Bolt has a pretty cool feature to enhance the prompt. Finally, you can also publish it. What this is going to do is that it's going to come up with some random URL that you can quickly share. This is really helpful if you want to quickly share it with your internal team or with someone that's perhaps on like a temporary basis. Um, it's gonna take all that code. It's gonna check the security. If I let's say I don't have any APIs or sensitive information in the code. If I have a custom domain, you can buy a new domain or add a domain on your own. It's helpful if you're publishing your own tool or publishing your own portfolio. Uh, Now, Bolt has published this to a website called whiteboard slash development slash some number dot bolt dot host. I will click on this and then I now have the entire website over here. I can easily copy the link and then I can share it with anyone. Um, I think I've taken way too much time, so I'll stop here. If you have any other questions, you can also comment, I'll reply, or you can also message me on LinkedIn, and then I'll be happy to help you with any cases you have. Okay, I think
Okay.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Hamza. I think it was very, very insightful and very hands-on. Um, so now we're going to go into the Q&A. You already answered some questions while you were developing the tool, but we have some more questions. And in case someone wants to share something else through Slido, this is the QR code and this is the code you can use inside the app. We'll be collecting the questions for the next few minutes, and then Hamza will reply to them. So while we collect questions, let me give you a quick round about product people and what we do. So, as I mentioned before, we are product management consultancy focused on doing the hands-on work of product management on an interim basis. So, in other words, which use cases do we cover? Usually, the most common one is interim fractional support as a product manager or product leader. Some of the most common use cases are for parental leaves or important urgent initiatives, or maybe even permanent position couples while you're hiring, since often it takes quite a lot to hire for an interim product management role, and therefore we can quickly jump in and keep the ball rolling. Then another one of our use cases is as a coach or advisor consultant, for product coach for program management or product operations to coach your team or to create process and optimize programs. And another of one of our use cases is a product discovery expert, mostly like discovering what's the next thing that you can do with your product, or even run a low or no code pilot slash MVP. Here you can see some of our selected B2C clients that includes eBay, DeepL, Ecosia, Blinkist, or Douglas and Bad Market. And here we have some other of our clients like the World Health Organization, Remote.com, Localize, and Sastrify. And to give you a bit more stats about us, we have supported almost 700 cross functional teams and more than 100 clients from startups to scale ups and publicly listed companies. We are in total 40 product leaders and product managers, in house employees to ensure the quality of our service, and 59% of women in our team, and 60% of our leadership is female lead, and we like to promote from within and hire more women in our company. So that said, we're back to Q&A. Let me check if we have questions. Which other questions do we have? Yes. So one of the questions is, what's the best way to present a PM build prototype without triggering defensiveness?
That's actually a really interesting question. I think it depends a lot on your team culture and your company culture as well, and it's a fine balance. Um, you will need to make sure that you're not stepping over the designer's authority. So there are like a bunch of cases. For example, if uh, you can discuss it with your designer or engineers first, like, hey, I have an idea for this. Do you have the capacity to build it? Or if they don't, just let them know, hey, I'm prototyping something like this, and I'll let you know how it goes. For now, you don't have to think about it, or hey, I'll definitely ask you for feedback. It's always best to keep them in the loop and be as transparent as possible, and also let them know, hey, this is just a prototype. Eventually, I'll come back to you for support, and this is something just to visually communicate what I'm trying to say. That's something that we did at our client, but definitely every scenario has its own set of things you need to keep track of or take care of it.
Yeah, thank you for the answer. I think that's actually very wise, because it can get tricky about how presenting this kind of initiatives or tools to especially C-level or leaders in a product team. So the next question is, would you say that this really improves your efficiency?
Um, I would say so in a couple of cases. So, for example, when I'm creating a PRD, or if I'm coming up with an idea or discovery for a new tool, it takes, especially for me as a visual person or a visual learner, it takes me a lot more time to write down those thoughts from from nothing. Uh, Compare that with something where I can just enter prompts, talk with ChatGPT or any tool in this case, and what I see on the design, I have a really clear picture of what I want to convert into requirements. Um, Another way is that if you're creating a prototype for validation, if your team has any questions, instead of relying on your engineers, which already might have a big backlog or some other priorities for this quarter or for this month, I can quickly take their feedback and feedback from the stakeholders, and then I can iterate quickly and implement those features without requiring a longer chain. I hope that is that answers your question.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So we have the last two questions for today. The first one is, how much prep do you do before starting versus discovering as you build?
Mm, Before starting versus discovering. For me, if it's a more complicated tool, um, I like to flesh it out first because in a lot of the cases, tools hit a wall and then you have to start over. So if it's something you know that's going to turn out complex, it's always to flesh it out beforehand, write it down in your notes app, and then refine it and then add it to your vibe coder. If it's something that's much more easily changeable in the future, you can vibe as you go.
Perfect. And as for the last question we have, do you reuse a starter template or build from scratch every time?
Um, this is an interesting one as well. So for company specific things, so for example, if you're creating a feature within an existing tool, um, if you're on Figma, you can use Figma Make and reuse the design system or a template that's already existing. In Bolt and Lovable, you can also import Figma files. But generally, I always build from scratch because it gives me a new perspective. If I enter the same prompt 3 or 4 times in the same tool, it's going to give me a different design, different layout. And I think that really expands my horizon on what I want.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, Hamza, for being here today and for sharing with us your experience on Vive coding. I think we all can agree that it's been a very dynamic and interactive session, which is always welcome. And thank you to everybody from the audience who came here today, who engaged with us, and we hope that you take something of value from this session. So to finish up today, just quickly reminder that we are hiring, and you can see our open positions if you scan the QR code on the screen, and also that we have an amazing newsletter that's once per month. And if you want to subscribe, you can also scan this QR code. And then a quick reminder about our next live stream. Indeed, actually, today is the last live stream of the year. We won't be doing any webinars during the holiday season. So the next live stream is going to be on January 6th. And we're going to have Quentin Francois talking about building medical devices from 0 to 1. So it's on our LinkedIn page. If you're watching us from LinkedIn, it's the event. It's already published, so feel free to sign up for that one if you're interested. And thank you so much for joining us. We hope you have a great evening and a great holiday season if you are celebrating.